Hi there. My name's Ethan, but you can call me the Hungry Reader. If you're like me, which most people aren't, you're a lifetime Oz fan. For the rest of you, the Land of Oz is the quintessential American fantasy world. It was created by L. Frank Baum, a former chicken farmer and department store window dresser, in the year 1900. It became an overnight success, spawning 13 sequels, 3 musical play adaptations, 3 movies, and an innovative multimedia vaudeville attraction. And that was just in Baum's own lifetime. After his death in 1918, the number of books published rose to 40 in total, followed by literally hundreds more as Oz finally passed into the public domain. But the most significant event was the 1939 film adaptation that has come to represent Oz in the hearts and minds of viewers around the entire world. Today, though, it's 2013. Oz itself is over 100 years old, and even that famous movie will be 75 years old next year. There are several new Oz projects coming your way from Hollywood, from Disney's Oz the Great and Powerful, which is in theaters as of this recording, to the animated adaptation of Dorothy of Oz to be released later next year, not to mention the ongoing plans for a film version of Gregory Maguire's popular book and musical Wicked. Oz is back! And so to celebrate, your Hungry Reader is going to be looking at the original 14 books by L. Frank Baum, all about Oz. If you're only familiar with Oz from the original 1939 movie with Judy Garland, or even just from the new movie with James Franco, I guarantee you will be amazed how far down the rabbit hole goes. How far up the tornado goes over the rainbow. If you have read the original Oz books, congratulations. You're a Hungry Reader too. Considering that it's a part of just about everyone's childhood, it seems a little redundant to completely recap The Wizard of Oz, doesn't it? Might as well recap Rockabye Baby. So we're just going to focus on the parts that were left out of the 1939 movie and most other adaptations, like decapitations. So many decapitations. We'll gloss over the parts of the story that you already know, but that still leaves about half the book. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum, with pictures by W. W. Denslow, read by The Hungry Reader. Dorothy lived in the midst of the great Kansas prairies, with Uncle Henry, who was a farmer, and Aunt Em, who was the farmer's wife. Their house was small, for the lumber to build it had to be carried by wagon many miles. There were 4 walls, a floor, and a roof, which made one room. When Dorothy stood in the doorway and looked around, she could see nothing but the great gray prairie on every side. Not a tree nor a house broke the broad sweep of flat country that reached the edge of the sky in all directions. No farmhands, no Professor Marvel, no Miss Gulch. Kansas is a pretty stressful place to live, what with being the crossroads of Tornado Alley and maybe you should give us our land back boulevard. Aunt Em and Uncle Henry are hard and stern from years of painful subsistence farming, and the only thing that keeps Dorothy the positive little girl she is Toto. When a monster cyclone touches down near the house, Aunt Em and Uncle Henry duck into the basement for safety, but Dorothy has to run back upstairs to find her dog, and that's when the whole house gets ripped from its foundation and spirals into the air. Dorothy falls asleep on her bed, like the fearless little badass that she is, and wakes up when the house finally touches down.
She looks out the window and is astonished by what a colorful place she's landed in.
Surprisingly, that was not an embellishment of the Technicolor film.
In the text, Baum specifically says that everything in Kansas is gray and colorless, even Aunt Em and Uncle Henry. When Dorothy goes out to explore her new surroundings, she meets 3 friendly locals, who are called Munchkins. We are told specifically that they are not short, or tall either, but most importantly, they always wear blue.
This is the first example we see of how the Land of Oz is color-coded.
The eastern part of Oz, the Munchkin country, has a blue motif, while the other quadrants each have their own favorite colors. In some books, Baum says that everything in a given country is the same color, from houses and fences to grass and mud.
Which makes it sound not too different from Kansas sometimes.
Dorothy is also welcomed to Oz by the Witch of the North, although, as I said, this is the East. She's just visiting.
The Witch of the North is never named in the book. It's not Glinda, by the way. Depending on which extra-canonical source you go by, her name is either Locasta or Taddypoo.
The Land of Oz is a very divided country. It's ruled by 2 good witches, one in the north and one in the south, and 2 wicked witches, one in the west and one in the east. Until now, that is, because Dorothy's house just came down and smushed the evil witch that was terrorizing the Munchkins.
What was the Wicked Witch doing? Several books from now, we'll learn that she was picking magical herbs to turn her servant girl into an ugly hag. Funny story, really.
Dorothy's first concern is whether Aunt Em and Uncle Henry are all right, but the Witch of the North does not have the power to send her home. She does, however, have the power to turn her hat into a magic chalkboard that has all the answers. It's Wikipedia. The blackboard says to visit the City of Emeralds and ask the most powerful person in Oz, the wizard who rules the whole country. Somehow, a certain pair of shoes never comes up. The Good Witch puts a protection spell on Dorothy that prevents her from being harmed by evil magic. She wishes her good luck, and that's the last we ever see of the Good Witch of the North, except for a non-speaking cameo 4 books later. So Dorothy cleans out her cupboards, changes her clothes, and puts on a better pair of shoes. The silver shoes that formerly belonged to the Wicked Witch of the East. Yeah, silver! The movie changed them to ruby because, even I admit, it did look better in color. Red is just Dorothy's color. The witch, though, I'd say she was more of a winter complexion. Loins girded for battle, Dorothy starts her journey. She spends the night with some partying munchkins who assume she must be the new Good Witch of the East, since she's wearing blue like they are. She doesn't correct them. The only thing in this blue country that isn't blue, in fact, is a road of yellow bricks that leads to the City of Emeralds. You'd think that the yellow country on the other side would have a blue brick road, right? More on that later. Dorothy follows the road of yellow brick to the City of Emeralds, hoping to meet the Wizard of Oz. And then things get boring, because the road takes a detour through Iowa, apparently, and Dorothy has nothing to look at but corn. Except for one thing.
Enter the Scarecrow.
Dorothy happens to strike up a conversation with an effigy stuck on a pole, who is very well spoken by Scarecrow standards. She never asks how he came to be alive, but books written after Baum's time would answer that question, and make everyone sorry they ever asked. The Scarecrow is really bad at his job, which he thinks is because he doesn't have a brain in his head. The fact that he's only 2 days old is never factored into the equation.
Possibly because no brain?
Dorothy helps him down and tells him where she's going, making the Scarecrow wonder whether he could get a brain of his own from the same source, and they continue together. They spend the night in a seemingly abandoned cottage in the woods, but in the morning discover the proprietor, a man made all out of tin, whose joints are rusted so badly he can't move.
His name is Nick Chopper, but you probably know him as the Tin Woodman. Once he's had his jaw idled off of that,
He can finally tell them his story.
He's not a robot, but a very early example of a transhuman. He had once been a Munchkin, but due to his unfortunate love affair with the Wicked Witch of the East slave girl, the one she wanted to turn into a crone, his axe was cursed to chop through him every time he used it. First he lost his leg and had it replaced with a tin prosthesis, but by and by he completely lost all of his flesh parts, even his head and body, and became a fully prosthetic person, a human phantom limb. Although he was now immortal, the witch had still won. He'd lost his heart and no longer loved the girl. When Dorothy tells him where she and the Scarecrow are going, the Tin Woodsman reasons, well, a wizard who can give out brains might have some hearts in the back room too, huh? Longing to love again, he joins the party, bringing his axe along for defense. Of course, the thoughtful thing to do would be to say, "Say, Scarecrow, you need a brain? Well, I'm not using mine anymore. Why don't you take it, chum?"
How heartless of him not to offer it.
With the Good Witch's kiss on Dorothy's forehead, the three of them are functionally invulnerable, with the exception of Toto. But when a monstrous lion jumps out of the forest and thinks to make easy prey of the dog, it's Dorothy, our fearless little badass, who saves him by slapping and shaming the big animal. Surprisingly, it works. The lion is humiliated by his own cowardice, and all of his insecurities come spilling out.
He's called the Cowardly Lion.
No name is ever given in the Baum books. Oz characters, just as often as not, have no name, just a prosaic description. In the Wicked Years novel series, Gregory Maguire dubs him Brrr, which is the best name I've ever heard for him, and a whole lot better than Dandelion, as he was called on the old 60s Tales from the Wizard of Oz show. Because of Burt Lahr's portrayal of him in the movie, he's often portrayed in new media as an anthropomorphic lion man, or even a were-lion. But Baum makes it clear he's just a talking lion, albeit a giant lion the size of a horse.
Dorothy welcomes him to join them. After all, if the wizard has hearts and brains behind the counter, he must have a barrel of courage glands somewhere in the back, right?
Now they've come to a part of the yellow brick road that's in bad disrepair, with huge gulfs and crevices. This is where Dorothy first notices that her new friends don't seem to need the things they long for as badly as they think. The Tin Woodman accidentally steps on a beetle and cries himself sick out of guilt. The Scarecrow comes up with an innovative idea for how to cross a chasm, and the Cowardly Lion grits his teeth and jumps over another crevice with each of them on his back.
But the true test of his mettle comes when the Colliders attack! These are monsters native to Oz that are almost never featured in new media.
They're bigger than the lion, with bears' bodies, tigers' heads, and Wolverine's claws. The so-called Cowardly Lion holds them back while the Tin Woodman knocks down a tree so they can escape over a chasm. Then the Scarecrow has the bright idea to chop the tree down behind them, sending the pursuing Colliders to a watery grave. Then there's another brief adventure when, as the party tries to cross a river, the Scarecrow suddenly finds himself stuck atop a pole for the second time in his life. This time, though, it's a bird that saves him, a friendly stork who thankfully, and understandably, isn't afraid of him. Once he's back on dry land, he sings "Toldy-ridey-o" at every step because he feels so gay. Language was different. Hi-ho, the carrion crow, toldy-ridey-riddledy-o. Hi-ho, the carrion crow, toldy-ridey-riddledy-o.
Why wasn't this song in the musical?
Next comes one of the most famous scenes from this story, the Field of Poisonous Poppies. In the movie, it was a plot by the Wicked Witch to stop them, but this four hasn't even met the witch yet. The poppies are just a natural hazard. Dorothy, Toto, and the Cowardly Lion all fall asleep and are helpless. But the Scarecrow and the Tin Woodsman don't eat, sleep, or breathe, not being meat people, as Baum dubbed the unfortunate mortals of Oz. So they can carry Dorothy and Toto to safety, but they can't carry the lion and are afraid they're going to have to leave him behind. Just then, a wildcat appears, chasing a field mouse. The Tin Woodman thinks quickly and chops its head off.
That's the second decapitation of the book. The first one was the Tin Woodman himself.
I don't know, maybe he was lonely for a pet and thought it was time to get started on the creation of a tin cat. Either way, the mouse he reflexively saved is none other than the queen of all field mice. I didn't know they had a monarchy. And she asks the trio how she can repay them. This gives the Scarecrow an idea. He has the Tin Woodman build a cart to load the lion onto, and hundreds of mice pull the lion to safety, their tiny heads safely below the poisonous blossoms. In the movie, of course, it's all-powerful Glinda who freezes the poppies for them, which disappointed me.
The mouse rescue was a scene I always wanted to see in the movie, but I guess animatronics technology wasn't there in 1939.
Kind of like how the indelible scene with the squirrels from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory didn't make it into the movie made in the 70s. Finally, Dorothy and her friends are literally out of the woods, so they stop in the suburbs of the Emerald City with a friendly family who doesn't mind putting them and their lion up for the night. Mom fixes up a healthy dinner for the three of them that can eat, while Dad, who's laid up with a bad leg, tells them everything he knows about the wizard.
You see, Oz is a great wizard and can take on any form he wishes. So that some say he looks like a bird, and some say he looks like an elephant. To others, he appears as a beautiful fairy, or a brownie, or in any other form that pleases him. Why do you wish to see the terrible Oz?
Oh. I want him to give me some brains.
Oh, Oz can do that easily enough. He has more brains than he needs.
And I want him to give me a heart.
That will not trouble him, for Oz has a large collection of hearts, in all shapes and sizes.
And I want Oz to give me some courage. No, ma'am, I said courage. I don't want more porridge, thank you. Ugh.
Oz has a large pot of courage in his throne room, which he has covered with a golden plate to keep it from running over. He'll be glad to give you some.
And I want him to send me back to Kansas.
Well, Oz can do anything. I'm sure he can find Kansas for you. What do you want?
This sequence never gets included in any adaptions, but I like it because of how meta it is. The wife is sensible and industrious, and the husband is a useless lump who lies around making up lies. So it's basically a self-insertion of the Baum family.
Finally, through dangers untold and hardships unnumbered, they fought their way to the castle within the Emerald City.
They are greeted by the Guardian of the Gates, who doesn't think the wizard will see them, but lets them in anyway. First, though, he straps green glasses onto all of them, which he says is to protect them from the eye-searing splendor of the Emerald City. These glasses are locked on and can't be removed without his key.
Oh, that's pleasant. Wouldn't it be fun to take a shower with your goggles on? And what if you already wear glasses?
Does the Guardian of the Gates have all different prescriptions of glasses just in case someone comes to the door needing them? Or is he a licensed optician who grinds them while you wait? Now we are introduced to two minor characters who will prove much more important in future Oz books. The Great Oz himself has a bodyguard called the Soldier with the Green Whiskers. In later books, we'll learn his name is Omby Amby, and in even later books, he will be renamed Want to Win Battles. The party is not allowed to see Oz altogether, so they're given sleeping quarters by a pretty maidservant,
All dressed in guess what color? Green.
Her name, we will later learn, is Jellia Jam, and the next book is kind of her star turn.
These two are a lot more important to the Oz mythology than you might think. They play very significant roles in the next 5 books.
In the morning, they receive their audience with Oz, and find that the injured man was telling the truth. Oz really does appear as something totally different to everyone he meets. The most familiar form, used in the 1939 movie and again in the 2013 movie, is Dorothy's vision of the wizard as a giant floating head. But the wizard that the Scarecrow sees has somehow taken the form of a beautiful woman. The Tin Woodman sees a hideous monster with 5 eyes and a rhinoceros's head. And the terrified Cowardly Lion sees no face at all to appeal to, but a giant crackling fireball. No matter what form he takes, though, his request is always the same. Kill the Wicked Witch of the West, just as they did to the one of the East, or there's no heart, brain, or Kansas for anyone. And since building a house-launching catapult is apparently out of the question, they're off to see the witch. And by the way, for the rest of the book, Dorothy is drawn wearing this adorable little Harley Quinn outfit. Here is where the book
Starts to really deviate from the movie we all know, and most related media derived from it.
In the famous MGM musical, the 2 Wicked Witches of the West and East were portrayed as sisters. This idea was carried over into Wicked and later into Oz the Great and Powerful, but in the book, the Wicked Witch of the West never even professes to know the Witch of the East, though she does still know about those shoes. As in the movie, she's never given a name, so she's not called Elphaba, or Eveline, or Evadora, or... Wait a minute, why do all witch names start with the letter E? The Wicked Witch of the West, as portrayed in the book, does not carry a broom, she carries an umbrella, which is smart thinking if you know anything about her. She also has no need for a crystal ball because her one eye can see anything. Unlike the Good Witch of the North, the Wicked Witch of the West is more dependent on servants and magical tools than magic spells of her own devising. She calls out her warriors to fight for her, and this is where things get bloody.
Remember our running decapitation count? It was at 2.
The witch's first line of defense is a phalanx of 40 black wolves, which rush upon the party, and the Tin Woodsman chops off their heads. Yes, all of them. He chopped the heads off of 40 wolves. That's as many as 4 tens. And that's terrible! The witch calls her second platoon, this time a flock of 40 black crows. So now it's the Scarecrow's turn. Does he scare them off, as befits his kind? No, Mr. Baum's bloodlust cannot be sated. The Scarecrow grabs them out of the air, one by one, and twists their necks! The decapitation count soars to 82!
And Dorothy is really glad she's got that magic kiss now.
The Wicked Witch summons her final army, a swarm of black bees. I think it's a fair guess that there's 40 of them, don't you? Why always 40, Mr. Baum? Anyway, the 3 meat people all hide under the Scarecrow's scattered straw, and the bees only find the Tin Woodman to sting, and break off their stingers.
So that's 82 decapitations and about 40 debuttitations. Give or take a butt.
Then the witch tries sending some Winkies, the yellow people of the West whom she has enslaved. But I'm pretty sure she only did that to give the lion something to do. So finally, the part you've all been waiting for, the part that's been traumatizing children for 75 years. The flying monkeys are deployed! Or winged monkeys, in the book.
It should be noted that in the book, the winged monkeys are not simply the witch's henchmen.
They're actually the unfortunate slaves of whoever possesses a certain golden cap, and even then, you can only summon them 3 times, genie style. The monkeys themselves aren't evil, they're just monkeys. But when they attack, our heroes are practically defenseless. The Scarecrow's clothes are shaken out and his straw is scattered to the 4 winds. The Tin Woodsman is dropped off a cliff. The lion is bound and gagged and taken to a stone tablet to be sacrificed for Edmund's life. And Dorothy... they can't hurt. She's still got that magic kiss. So they take her to the witch without hurting her, and the witch can't hurt her either.
But Dorothy doesn't know that. She spends days as the witch's slave, under threats of beatings with that ever-present umbrella.
That is, beatings that the witch can only threaten but not administer, as she plots and schemes to get those shoes! She can't get them while Dorothy's taking her bath, of course, and while it would be easy to sneak in while Dorothy sleeps and get them, the witch is afraid of the dark. Yep. She does have the lion locked up and starving, but Dorothy sneaks him food while the witch sleeps. Finally, the witch resorts to a trick, and a very clever one. She places an invisible metal bar in the middle of the kitchen floor, which Dorothy trips over and one of the shoes comes off. The witch immediately grabs it and swears one day she'll get the other one too.
Now, let's briefly compare our literary Dorothy with the cinematic Dorothy, as portrayed by Judy Garland.
In the movie, the Wicked Witch cruelly lights the Scarecrow on fire, and Dorothy grabs a nearby mop bucket and tries to save her friend, but instead she douses the witch, causing her to melt, for which Dorothy apologizes profusely, despite the fact that killing the witch was exactly what they came there to do in the first place. Yeah, I know the wizard just asked for the broom, but you think he'd want it if he thought the witch was coming back for it?
And in the book, Dorothy seems unaware that she has any magical defenses, let alone knowing anything about the power of the shoes. But you do not cross her!
The witch gleefully crows that half of the charm is hers! Now all she has to do is click her... Oh wait, huh. Dorothy is so angry, she grabs a mop bucket and throws it on the witch out of spite. The witch was messing with the shoe and couldn't put up her umbrella, and she starts to melt, wailing that she's done for. What does Dorothy do? Does she apologize? Well, yes. And then she goes and gets another bucket.
Fearless little badass.
Dorothy is free. The Winkies are free. Oz is free. It's party time. With the help of the grateful Winkies, Dorothy and the lion find their friends and repair them. It turns out that tinsmithing is a traditional craft of the Winkies, so they take quite a shine to the Tin Woodman. While they're busy fixing him, Dorothy amuses herself by looking through the dead witch's stuff. That golden cap really matches her shoes, so she keeps it, even if it does make her look a little like Do-Rag Smurf.
At long last, they're on their way home to get their prizes from the wizard. But there is no blue brick road back to the Emerald City on this side of Oz, so they get lost.
No road to or from the Emerald City? Boy, say what you will about the Wicked Witch of the East, at least she kept the infrastructure up. After wandering around lost for a few days, they call the Queen of the Field Mice, who helpfully says, "You know that hat you're wearing is magic, right?" Dorothy did not, so she tries out the charm written inside.
Eppy, peppy, cocky. What did you say? Hello? Hello? Hello!
Hello.
Zizzy, Zuzzy, Zick!
Winged monkeys love to fly, and it shows. Along the way back to the Emerald City, Dorothy strikes up a conversation with the lead monkey, who tells them what's up with the cap. Decades ago, there was a witch princess named Gaylette who had finally found Mr. Right. Well, more specifically, she made Mr. Right by adopting a boy and putting him through intense husband training.
Does that seem as creepy to you as it does to me? Well, some people in some cultures probably wouldn't bat an eye if it was the man training the girl.
When the wedding day finally arrived, on his way, Quilala, the groom, met some flying monkeys who playfully pushed him into the river. He wasn't mad, he'd been to Husband Academy, but Gaylette was so angry she wanted to have the monkeys drowned. Jeez, what a witch! Real catch there, Quilala! He wouldn't let her hurt the monkeys, of course, but she punished them anyway by enslaving them to the cap, which she gave to him as a rather ominous wedding gift. All Quilala asked the monkeys to do was stay out of his cruel wife's way. That worked out well for all parties, until the cap fell into the hands of the Wicked Witch of the West decades later. Which makes one wonder if maybe the witch is Gaylette herself. What could have happened to Quilala? Well, that's my theory. We never find out in any future books. The winged monkeys drop Dorothy off at the gates, and they immediately go to wait for Oz to contact them, which he doesn't. Finally, they get sick of waiting and go to him, only to find that he has become invisible, intangible, and uncooperative. The ensuing argument startles Toto, who knocks down a screen.
It turns out the wizard was really the name of his sled!
Everyone knows the twist in this story. The wizard is just a con man from Omaha. The wonderful, wonderful things he does are just showbiz skills, special effects, and brazen bluffing. He explains to the group how he used to be a circus performer until his promotional balloon blew away in a storm and took him to Oz. As Dorothy knows, the Ozites tend to assume that anyone who falls out of the sky is a magician, so under the guidance of their new wizard, the Emerald City was built. And everyone there wears green glasses as an economic stimulus. It hides the fact that the city is not made of emeralds. Still, the wizard isn't a bad guy. He was just afraid of the witches, who really did have magic powers he would have been helpless against. Since they're all dead, though, he keeps his promises and gives everyone what they asked for. Yes, really, no cop-out diploma and medal from this wizard. Scarecrow is first in line, so the wizard takes off his head.
Decapitation number 83. Yeah, it counts. Consensual is still decapitation.
The wizard restuffs the Scarecrow's head with pins and needles to make him sharp, then fills the rest up with bran, which prompts him to make a joke so bad that no one would ever dare use it again, except the Muppets! Next, Nick Chopper steps up to get his heart, and wouldn't you know it, the wizard actually has one, albeit a plush heart filled with sawdust. He mounts it in Nick's chest cavity, and the Tin Woodman immediately finds himself transformed into Woodamus Prime!
You got the heart. You got the motion.
Finally, it's the Cowardly Lion's turn to get his courage. I'll cover my courage.
Very well. I will get it for you. Drink.
Drink? What is it?
Well, if it were inside of you, it would be courage. You know, of course, that courage is always inside one, so this really cannot be called courage until you've swallowed it. Therefore, I advise you to drink it as soon as possible. How do you feel now?
Full of courage!
Literally, liquid courage.
Some scholars say it was just a quack patent medicine that the wizard gave him, right? I'm sorry, it really sounds like absinthe to me.
All that trouble going to see the wizard when he could have just gotten help from the green fairy.
You may notice that, despite how gratefully they received them, the gifts are still placebos. The wizard himself admits he can't help being a humbug because people are so happy when they think he's done the impossible. But there's one person that his quack patent medicine still won't help. And he can't just hook her up with a horse and carriage either because the Land of Oz is surrounded by a magically impassable desert. So he digs deep into his bag of magical circus tricks and remembers how to sew together a balloon. And, missing the circus life, decides to go with Dorothy. He declares the Scarecrow, who is now the smartest person in the Emerald City, interim king during his retirement. You know how this part ends, though, of course. Toto gets loose, and Dorothy gets left behind. Interestingly, the Emerald City immediately gives the wizard up for dead and declares a day of mourning for him. But it's not the last we see of him. Dorothy is, of course, bitterly disappointed in not being able to go home. Then she remembers her golden cap. But when she does call the monkeys, they're like, "Oh, yeah, we can't leave Oz. Never could. Sorry. Good luck. You got one wish left. Ooh, ooh."
And they don't even waive that wasted summons? What a crock! Let this be a lesson to all you job creators out there. It's a lot better to have your employees contracted under a mutual agreement than cursed to serve you.
Just when it seems that all hope is lost, who should appear in a beautiful pink bubble but Ambi-Ambi? Ha! Psych! And he suggests maybe they should go ask Glinda for help. But that's not the Good Witch of the North's name. Who's Glinda? Why, she's the Good Witch of the South, of course, and the most powerful magician in all of Oz. Not wanting to get rooked by the monkeys again, Dorothy and her friends set out on foot to the South Country to meet Glinda. Yes, they go to her.
This is yet another very large part of the story that usually gets omitted from most Oz adaptations. To be fair, the climax of the book does happen closer to the middle than the end, with the melting of the witch and the wizard's reveal and all of that, so I don't blame them for cutting it short, but the second half is still very important because it shows how the quartet has changed, or not changed, now that they finally have the brain, the heart, and Deneuve that they've fought so hard for over the course of the book, and especially that they're not going to give up on Dorothy getting what she wants just because they've got theirs.
The way to Glinda's palace takes them through the Quadling Country, the southern part of Oz, where the favorite color is red. There are plenty of hazards along the way, though, like the fighting trees, which you might remember from the 1939 movie. They do present a brief obstacle, but they quickly learn not to piss off a woodcutter, no matter how big his nice new heart is. The real surprise, though, is what's beyond the trees. Not Glinda's palace, but the dainty China Country. Hidden deep in the dark forest is a walled city of walking, talking ceramics, which our heroes must cross through carefully, but they still can't help smashing things along the way. One very significant thing that they smash is a church. This is significant because it's the only church ever mentioned anywhere in Oz. The China people can be glued together if broken, but they hate it because it spoils their looks. Except for a certain clown who is always breaking himself in the name of hilarity.
"My lady fair, why do you stare at poor old Mr. Joker? You're quite as stiff and prim as if you'd eaten up a poker."
I said that once, in 5th grade, to a girl who was staring at me. Popular!
Although it didn't appear in the 1939 movie, the dainty China Country made its big screen debut in the new movie Oz the Great and Powerful. A China character is also slated to appear in the upcoming Legends of Oz Dorothy Returns, so perhaps walking China dolls will be a significant part of Oz mythology from now on. Once they're past the delicate China people, they come to a clearing where the animals of the forest are having a meeting. And I mean all the animals. Their spokesman, a very large and probably hungry tiger, asks the lion if he can help. A giant spider has moved into the forest and is eating up all the megafauna. He, in fact, is the only lion in the forest now because the spider ate all the rest. It's payback time. The great spider was lying asleep when the lion found him, and it looked so ugly that its foe turned up his nose in disgust. Its legs were quite as long as the tiger had said, and its body covered in coarse black hair. It had a great mouth with a row of sharp teeth a foot long, but its head was joined to the pudgy body by a neck as slender as a wasp's waist. This gave the lion a hint as to the best way to attack the creature.
Oh boy!
With one blow of his heavy paw, all armed with sharp claws, he knocked the spider's head from its body.
That's 84. 84 decapitations!
Finally, there's only one more hill to cross before they arrive at Glinda's palace. But this hill is the home of one of Baum's weirdest creations ever, the Hammerheads. These are little humanoid cannons with jack-in-the-box heads that they can fire off like bullet bills. They don't have any complaint with Dorothy and her friends. They're just mean little jerks and won't let them cross. This is a job for winged monkeys! Thankfully, they don't shrink from their duties this time and carry Dorothy all the way to Glinda's palace. As the group meets with Glinda and her all-female guard for the first time, one can't help but notice that Glinda is a real do-gooder. True, she does ask for the golden cap as payment for services rendered, but then she turns right around and promises one of each of her monkey summonings to the group itself. To send the Scarecrow back to the Emerald City, the Tin Woodman to his new friends in the Winky Country, and the Lion to rule over the dark forest he liberated from the spider. Then she promises to give the cap to the monkeys themselves and end their servitude. She must have done it. We never see them again.
But what about Dorothy? You know this part. The Silver Shoes could have taken her home the whole time.
So Dorothy hugs and kisses her loyal friends goodbye, taps the heels of her shoes together 3 times, and says those immortal words, "Take me home to Aunt Em!" What, you didn't think she was going to say something else, did you? But just like that, she runs all the way home in just 3 steps. Only problem with running that fast is that it's kind of hard to keep your shoes on. The miraculous shoes are lost in the deadly desert and are never seen in any other book ever again. Aunt Em had just come out of the house to water the cabbages when she looked up and saw Dorothy running toward her. "My darling child!" she cried, folding the little girl in her arms and covering her face with kisses. "Where in the world did you come from?" "From the land of Oz," said Dorothy gravely. "And here's Toto, too. And oh, Aunt Em, I'm so glad to be home again."
You may notice one important facet of the MGM movie is completely missing from the book. Dorothy doesn't wake up with all of her friends around her. She really did go to Oz, and she really came back. It wasn't a dream.
Making Oz all a dream may have been a shrewd business decision somehow back in the 30s, but artistically, at least in my opinion, it was poorly conceived and a terrible insult to the intelligence of the audience. We know Oz isn't real. That's why we're watching your movie. If Oz were real, we wouldn't watch a movie. We'd go there ourselves. When you stop your whole narrative just to go, wait, this isn't all real, it completely breaks the suspension of disbelief and defeats the purpose of telling a story in the first place. That is, unless the story has a message. Whenever you bring up the Wizard of Oz in certain company, some bright little fellow with brand new brains is going to eagerly exclaim that the book was in fact a parable on populist politics and the silver standard. They'll start pointing out things like how silver shoes walk over the yellow, presumably gold, bricks, and the Scarecrow represents agrarianism, and the Tin Woodsman industrialism, and so on and so forth. I've always had one thing I wanted to ask about this. What's the parable behind the dainty China country? Does this represent Chinese labor? What are the hammerheads in your allegorical structure? What about Quilala and Gaylette? What do 40 decapitated wolves represent in the politics of 1899? And if L. Frank Baum was such a supporter of William Jennings Bryan's Populist Party, why did he campaign for McKinley in Chicago?
And how, I really must ask, was Baum able to work up enough allegorical material in this vein for 13 more books?
If the book has any underlying moral, I would say it's the triumph of illusions over reality. The Emerald City is built on the wizard's false reputation, but it's still a wonderful and prosperous city. The wizard may not be magical, but his humbuggery brings happiness to everyone he meets. Even before they get their humbug rewards, the Scarecrow is already logical, the Tin Woodsman is caring and affectionate, and the Cowardly Lion is unwaveringly honorable. But they far prefer a head full of needles and cereal, a plush heart, and beer goggles to the uncertainty they felt without them. Most of all, Dorothy labors under the delusion that her long journey is the only way home, not knowing that her magic shoes would have taken her home in the first 15 minutes. But the illusion of necessity brought her together with 3 of the best friends that she would ever have, and enriched the lives of an entire country.
Does that sound like the moral of an allegory for the silver standard to you? If anything, it sounds like Mr. Baum was an early champion of credit cards. His politics are very difficult for us to understand today, not least because they were the politics of 100 years ago.
It's no secret, for example, that 10 years prior to writing The Wizard of Oz, in the wake of the death of Sitting Bull, L. Frank Baum did in fact write a fiercely bigoted editorial advocating the genocide of American Indians. This is already very difficult to reconcile with Baum the man as we know him from the Oz books, and is completely irreconcilable with Baum, the devoted son-in-law of Matilda Joslyn Gage, the famous suffragette and Indian rights activist. Could that whole scathing editorial have really been sarcasm, or was this just Mr. Baum appealing to the world outside of Oz as he saw it? A post-Civil War chaos of institutionalized racism and sexism, where calling for the extinction of just one ethnic group was practically the sign of a political moderate. But the world that Mr. Baum saw when he closed his eyes was filled with powerful, brave women like Dorothy and Ozma, who defeat weak-willed men like the Wizard and the Gnome King. A utopia of diversity and openly shared resources, where no one is rich, but everyone enjoys the riches of content.
What does all of this tell us about the message that Mr. Baum was trying to convey? As far as I'm concerned, nothing. Mr. Baum spoke his intentions very plainly in the introduction to the book.
The old-time fairy tale, having served for generations, may now be classed as historical in the children's library, together with all the horrible and blood-curdling incidents devised by their authors to point a fearsome moral to each tale. Modern education includes morality, therefore the modern child seeks only entertainment in its wonder tales. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was written solely to pleasure children of today. It aspires to being a modernized fairy tale in which the wonderment and joy are retained and the heartaches and nightmares are left out. Okay, well, he could have left the nightmares a little more out, sure, but he still filled his story full of things that have fascinated children for over a century, and are still thrilling to imagine, even as I filmed this using my iPad, a device that the technology-loving Mr. Baum would have given anything to play with for a while. But you don't need an iPad to go to Oz. You don't even need a balloon. Oz is the most uniquely American fairyland because, although its borders are invisible, they are wide open to anyone who picks up a pen or pencil and begins to write down their dreams.
Next time, we'll find out what happened to the Scarecrow after he became king, and what happened to L. Frank Baum after W. Denslow became a king. Hope you're hungry. I know I will be. Ew, banana. Ah, mint.
If you would like to read The Wonderful Wizard of Oz yourself, good news! It's in the public domain and can be downloaded for free from archive.org for your Mac, PC, iPad, Kindle, or Nook. But if you want the real McCoy printed on dead trees version, you can get the Books of Wonder Harper Trophy Edition that I used in this video at Barnes & Noble or wherever fine books are sold. But for the real McCoy, you want the 100th Anniversary Edition, also from Books of Wonder, available at Amazon or booksofwonder.com or wherever you want to buy your books.